Breaking news time, Mets fans. Breaking news. First and foremost, I would like to sincerely apologize if my audio is a bit echoey and my visuals are a little shaky. That is because I'm currently recording this on the fly right now, because even though Wardy's out of town, when breaking Mets news happens, we got to chop it up and break it down right away, especially regarding this topic, as we have been beating this drum for weeks on end now, and it's finally coming to fruition, everybody. So apologies for no lapel mic for me to utilize for the audio to be better, and if I'm a little shaky, that's because the arm's going to cramp up inevitably in 2 seconds while I'm holding my phone, because I don't have a nice little stick to hold it for me. But guys, as you may have seen already, Frankie Montas is officially moving to the Mets bullpen. First and foremost, finally, I think we can all agree there. When we think of a signing that's fallen more flat on its face from the inception of it under David Stearns as president, there are few that are greater in said magnitude than one in Frankie Montas. A $34 million contract after showing up to camp clearly out of shape for the Mets in spring training, went down with injury right away, and then after having a months-long rehab of not pitching well whatsoever in the minor leagues, gets caught up the Mets, has like 2 decent outings, but for the most part is batting practice. Can't get out of his own mess, which is what led the Mets to moving Montas from a normal starter to a bulk reliever in his latest outing, as he came in after Reed Garrett had a spot start where he won a scoreless inning. That game was frustrating as well, not only because of Montas, but then we saw Ryan Stanek utilized in the 7th, and he blew things up. Helsley made it even worse, but you have to wonder, would things have been different in that game if Reed Garrett wasn't spot starting in the first place? I'm getting on a tangent. I know. The point stands though. Frankie Montas allowed 1 earned run in that outing across 3 innings, but if you actually understood the context of that outing, you knew that there was nothing impressive about Montas whatsoever. He doesn't have good put-out pitches. He's constantly allowing the ball to be put in play, and that went in direct hand as to why Lindor had a costly 2-run error there that we saw that was in charge against Montas, but didn't help him out all that much either. So Frankie, after having an over 6-year array throughout the bunch of starts and now his latest kind of reliever outing, he's officially being moved to that Mets bullpen. And that is massive news, because when you think about it, Montas is making $17 million this year. He's potentially making another 17 plus next year, because unfortunately the option is in players' favor, if I'm not mistaken, regarding Frankie. So this is something the Mets are going to have to eat and deal with for now. We're witnessing in real time David Stearns trying to initially save face with what was a poor signing from the start, and after trying to give it a go multiple times, he's providing no length whatsoever. He and Clay Holmes, 2 of the biggest rotation signings for the Mets this past offseason for David Stearns, with the exception of Sean Manaea, because Manaea was the retread. It made sense to bring Manaea back, but the Mets, instead of bringing Severino back on, say, 2 years of $40 million total, $20 million AAV, they opted for Frankie Montas at $6 million less total there with that second-year option. I think we could all agree we wouldn't mind Severino right now, even though he hasn't had the best season. The vibes are clearly there with him still, especially in New York. Again, shoulda, coulda, woulda, it doesn't matter now, but what does matter is that Frankie Montas moved to the bullpen means that, yes, folks, it's inevitably happening. Finally, as Carlos Mendoza has reiterated, Paul Blackburn has his latest rehab outing tomorrow, meaning he will not be eligible to start for the Mets this Saturday in placement of where Montas was initially supposed to be slotted. What does that mean? Well, according to Mike Puma of the New York Post, Nolan McLean is the leading candidate to be called up by this Mets team. Brandon Sproat is right behind him. Both of these guys are going to be in this Mets rotation soon, because we're going to see piggyback outings happen more than likely. As I've been stating, as I've been proposing on the platform for the past month and a half now, it makes endless sense with the Mets' lack of starter depth when you look at they have gotten no guys outside Peterson to give them length whatsoever. And it's been so brutal that the Mets are now on a streak that's best going back to 1901 of having 50 plus consecutive games where outside of David Peterson, no one's providing length beyond, say, like 4.2 innings tops. So Clay Holmes, Frankie Montas, the 2 guys that Stearns signed that are not providing length in this rotation, are better suited utilizing piggyback outings. Especially if you do in fact keep Clay as a starter, why not have one of McLean or Sproat then come in as a multi-inning reliever for 2, 3, 4 innings? I understand that you might throw off his rhythm a bit, but if you also do it in direct hand with every single time that Clay finds himself starting, then it makes sense, because he can still be utilized, he that being Sproat, in that same type of turn in the rotation, pitching every 4th or 5th day. So it doesn't really throw off the rhythm all that much outside of maybe not starting the ball game itself. And we'll see what happens with Clay Holmes. But regarding Frankie Montas, barring drastic changes from now to Saturday, the Mets are inevitably calling up Nolan McLean. And that's big news. If you guys have followed the platform, Nolan McLean is one of my favorite prospects in the organization. Initially quoted as Cowboy Ohtani, drafted out of OSU a couple years ago, along with his buddy Carson Bench, who's now the Mets' top prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, which we love that he was drafted by Stearns this past year. Love Bench. Very excited to see what he can do in Syracuse. But McLean has been the most consistent starter in Syracuse all year long. In case you guys are wondering, why not Brandon Sproat? Why is he not necessarily the leading candidate? And that has everything to do with the fact that what Sproat has done over the past month has been strong, impressive. July ERA of .67, but that isn't as impressive as Nolan McLean, who's been consistently dominant all season long, initially starting there in high A and then moving over there, in Double A, and then moving over to Triple A. In Triple A this season, Nolan McLean has a 2.8 ERA, including another fantastic scoreless outing yet again there that we just saw a couple days ago. So McLean, with that gorgeous sweeper that's going to play up at the MLB level so much, he has truly a multi-tool pitch mix that I think is going to bode well at the MLB level. There are some concerns with his swing and miss rates as well as the K to walk ratio. We'll see him have his ebbs and flows of a normal season for a young rookie, but McLean now is being given an opportunity, and quite the contrary from what David Stearns stated in the first half of the season as to one of the key factors as to why the kids weren't considered was because you don't want to call a kid up out of team need and desperation. Well, folks, what is David Stearns going to be doing? He's calling up Nolan McLean because of team need and desperation. They are in desperate need of length in the rotation. And while McLean is not a lock to necessarily give you 6 innings, if you piggyback him with a guy like Montas, or if you piggyback him with another reliever that can say go 2 innings for you, then that's pretty much all you could ask for if you're the Mets at this point in time. Listen, beggars can't be choosers. The Mets have been free falling. They've lost 7 straight, 11 of their past 12. They're hoping to right that ship starting today, but before then, they need to start to make some organizational changes that we have been beating this drum for days on end, weeks on end. It is finally starting to happen, everybody. But Nolan McLean now has a key opportunity not only to make an immediate impact for this rotation, but McLean and Sproat, we're now going to watch in real time if these guys can impact the Mets heading into postseason play. Can they be X factors into helping not only stabilize this rotation, but also lengthen the bullpen, which is what Montas should, in theory, be able to help you do. Now, this is not a lock. This is not a guarantee, so we will wait and see what happens in the case on how Montas handles being a reliever, but this had to be done. And the fact that it hadn't happened sooner was rather frustrating, and many fans, including myself, as the Mets are 5-11 this year in spot start outings. So there was really never, ever a true justified reason to go ahead and do what they did, yet they have continued to do exactly that. And what I've been telling you guys on the platform, if you've been watching our post-game content, especially as we cover the game after every single game, not a guarantee if we're going to have post-game tonight, guys, barring changes, because I have a very hectic schedule today, but that's okay. We will be back tomorrow, I guarantee it. But until then, though, everybody, what I can tell you is that this rotation not only needed the help, but when you look at the structure of this team, they needed to make some type of change. And McLean has clear upside. Sproat has clear upside. Nolan McLean is being deemed right now as a top 30 prospect in baseball per MLB Pipeline. Brandon Sproat is in that conversation as well. Jonathan is on the outside looking in, but it will not be far before we see Tan, in my opinion, be deemed as one of the best pitching prospects in baseball, if not already. I think when you have a guy with more strikeouts than anyone else in Double A, let alone all of the minor leagues, it's hard to justify Tan not being high in the Pipeline ranking. So I'm expecting that to change rather soon, should he adjust to the Syracuse level. But as we saw Tan get called up to Syracuse over the past 24 hours or so, this was going to be the inevitable corresponding move. We're going to see McLean likely get the call. Sproat will not be long after too, I'm sure. And then we'll see how the Mets can handle now a different rotation configuration. And if they can get the length done down with this rotation, where at least you have, say, Sproat, McLean, hopefully giving you anywhere for 5-6 innings, and then a multi-inning reliever to consider, because we know that there's a little bit of an innings limit how far McLean and Sproat can go this year. They've already pitched a good amount in the minor leagues, so that is to be determined. But this is prime time now for the Mets to get their pitching right to a degree with their in-house options, see what you have there, and go from there. And then now you need to figure out the offense. That's the big thing. The Mets are bottom feeder runners of scoring position. Can't expect them to get anywhere this year. Can't even expect them to have playoffs as a lock, and they cannot get their head out of their you-know-whats when it comes to playing piss-poor baseball on the offensive end. I got plenty more to say about this, and I will do so later on in content, everybody. But until then, make sure you hit that like and subscribe on your way out, and let me know your initial reactions and thoughts to one, Frankie Montas finally moving to this Mets bullpen, and secondly, now seeing Nolan McLean inevitably likely to get that call in the coming days. Mike Puma was the first to reiterate that. They're not going to make the official decision until closer to Saturday, which is normal for roster construction reasons. So until then, everybody, be on the lookout. We'll see how the Mets fare tonight in game 1 of a 3-game set against the Atlanta Braves at home. The Braves are the Braves. There's so many games below 500. Let's go and treat them how they're supposed to be treated, and not the way that the Mets have been pretty much curb stomped in tight one-run ball games, what feels like every single game for the past 2 weeks. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, no matter what, let's go Mets. Peace out.